And I'm back. In the top left, as the blue Zerg starting off today, it is Denver. And in the bottom right, as the cheesy red Zerg, he is SortOf. Now he's going for a early pool. No gas. See if that changes. As we know how the audio is. It's a little bit weak in my ears, but let me know. And then also excuse this brief moment of silence while I sent a tweet out, because I forgot to do that. Kind of for group. Starting with at SortOf versus at Denver. Yeah, close enough. That's 5. Alright, hopefully I didn't mess any of that up with embarrassing spelling mistakes, because I'm not double checking it. Okay, so we have a pool first that is gasless against what is a hatch first, then pool, then gas. So Denver didn't actually do the greediest thing possible, kind of by far. You can actually go gas, or you had 2 drones, then gas, then pool. This is actually like pretty safe opener considering that it was a hatch first. And as such, SortOf's kind of non-committal pool first, early pool, I'm not sure we'll actually do a whole lot. I would say if you get the cancel or kill, God forbid, on this hatchery, then that's where things are really A+, and you get a much faster hatchery while only maybe being behind in the gas timing. Well, actually probably being behind in the gas timing because he still hasn't taken it. But that's something that you can defend with, and it puts yourself in a winnable position as long as your defense is okay. If you don't get the hatchery, you might still pull off enough drones and kill enough drones like we see here to make it worth it too. But then if this is actually microed correctly from Denver that he buys time for Lings, SortOf just might not get the hatchery. Lings are already on the way. Drones are still willing to help them out as well, but there's, you know, double the amount of Lings for SortOf, and in fact, some of the Lings even get caught awkwardly on the ramp. SortOf taking an okay fight. Drones still aren't quite going down, though a lot of them are weak. There we go, finally 2 get knocked down, but 2 drones and a lot of lost mining time. Was that worth the early pool, considering he didn't actually manage to get that hatchery, and he's going to be behind on the speed timing. Ooh. I'm not quite sure yet. Yes, I asked a question and I don't really have an answer, but SortOf did finally get 1 gas. Sometimes you see a follow-up of gasless, which is quite risky to do, but is feasible on other maps, I think. Abyss Reef's a little bit difficult because there are 2 openings, where you wait until, actually I'm not even sure, maybe 3 or 4 minutes to get double gas and then go straight into roaches, but that's like a little dangerous to do. Obviously, his speed's still going to be late, but Denver had to delay his own speed. I think his priority was getting as many mineral-based units out, and then he had to start speed after that. So this isn't even as fast as it could have been, and as such is only about 20 seconds ahead of SortOf. So not a very big deal, I would say, when it comes to defense for SortOf. But if Denver adds on a baneling nest and then, you know, attacks, well, then that's something you really need to defend against. But he's actually taken his guys off of gas entirely, so no baneling nest is going to come down. And he actually just takes a faster third. So, like I said, you know, I think a lot of the time the speed is, especially if it's not a gas early pool, the speed is going to be a little bit later than the person who's defending. Maybe Denver's looking to just get that, I don't know, boost in economy reading into that. But SortOf is actually following up with a huge all-in. A lot of Lings are on the way long before speed is even finished. I mean, he didn't wait until 5 seconds before speed is finished and then show everything. He showed the Lings to Denver scouting Lings, and that might have been the trigger to pull. And Denver is trying to build a wall desperately, and luckily they were slow Lings, so they took their time getting over here. This wall is not only set up, but it's also pretty healthy. SortOf does not have any banelings to break through this, and Denver is getting closer and closer to his baneling nest, although that could be killed. It is the one that is getting weaker and weaker. But all the evolution jabbers finished. The spine crawler is going to be repositioned. Queens getting a nice damage done, and SortOf's attack is just not working out here, because even if he breaks this, Denver has enough Lings. But he did have to cancel his 3rd base, and SortOf maybe can come back if he continues scaring Denver while droning. But that's definitely key here, is that SortOf cut a lot of drones to do this. It was down like 21 to 27 at one point and is now starting to catch up, but Denver realizes the threat is over and is also starting to drone. So Denver had better economy for longer. Did have to make a bunch of evolution chambers, I suppose, but still had more drones. And now has Baneling tech over his opponents. So if SortOf tries to take his third a little bit too fast, that's where Denver could potentially get a couple of cancels on that. His Overlord is scouting for that third base and its timing, but SortOf is going to play on the 2 bases for a little while longer. He's got a wall, he's got 2 queens fitting in there. Only a couple of Banelings coming in aren't going to be enough to really help damage the wall, and they do want to be kept alive for what he knows is still a lot of lings. I don't think these lings are going to be able to break this too easily. SortOf's lings are waiting very patiently, I suppose. Waiting maybe to counterattack, maybe for the Banelings to disappear, which at this point they have. Okay, he goes for the... Okay, he wanted to go for the counter, but a scouting ling saw how many Banelings were prepared and decided to back off. Denver is unable to break the wall. Luckily, SortOf had a transfuse and a second queen to back things up. Well, a third queen, really, to back things up. And is not going to take any damage from this. He also managed to get ahead in the drone count. Although that's only going to be good for a certain amount of time, because of course without a third base and more minerals, it's going to be a little more difficult to actually utilize, you know, an increased drone count. And things are still getting really back and forth heated. Denver really wants to get this faster third base up, and it's finally up, and he's starting to, you know, send some drones over there. But SortOf now has perhaps the superior roach tech. Certainly he's getting to that +1 missile attack faster, where Denver chooses to go for Zerg melee attacks. Sometimes we see Carapace, of course, and that can help Banelings, but that's not something he has to worry about since SortOf never went for a Baneling nest. And then it can help your roaches after the fact. But if you get +1 melee on what is a ton of lings, and clearly it's a ton of lings, they'll chew through roaches really quickly. And see here, the roaches even get partially surrounded. Luckily, SortOf had a lot of lings to help out. They have to back off from the Banelings, though. They're trying to run away, trying to take this okay trade. They're getting caught in big old clumps. A lot of action going down there. One Baneling even explodes on a lot of SortOf's drones. He hold positions them in an emergency, but that still is only helping so much. 19 drones immediately just going down in the blink of an eye. And SortOf, I think, has lost the game. GG. Wow, that was quite the action-packed ZvZ. Welcome back. It's game number 2. And in the top left, as the Red Zerg up 1, it's Denver. In the bottom right, as the Blue Zerg, he is SortOf. That was action-packed ZvZ that started with SortOf with something like Zordon. SortOf with the aggression didn't really work out as intended. I actually wanted to check out the income graph, but there's so much going on I kind of forgot about it. But to see how much damage he really did with his early pool. You know, Denver kind of had the, I think, the most appropriate response you can. If he doesn't pull the drones, the hatchery dies. Because at that point, SortOf can actually just like focus fire on it, and that'd be worth it. Yeah, actually, I guess I meant to talk about more things that might relate to that hatchery, but that's kind of the biggest deal, right? If he doesn't pull the drones, the hatchery goes down. But I guess also where I was going with that, if he loses more drones, yeah, there you go. If he loses more drones in that pool, like he loses 6 or 7, and about 3 or 4 of them were weak but not dead, then SortOf is also probably happy with that, because he gets a substantial early drone lead as he was droning behind all that aggression. But Denver only lost a handful. I think he only lost 2. The mining time was maybe not enough. And then he had that really nice scout on the follow-up all-in that I think a lot of Zergs would not expect. They'd be scared of, but they wouldn't expect. Wow, that's a lot of bits. Oh god, the spam. Right, you might not expect it, but you'll be wary of it. So if you just chose, like, you didn't get the scout, for instance, and you just chose instead to think, like, I'm gonna guess he's not gonna go for a follow-up all-in, well, then that's also Denver dead. SortOf had a lot of tricky aggression, is basically the summary, and none of it really worked out as well as he was hoping for. On the same note, though, SortOf, due credit, had a lot of great defense against Denver's counter-aggression whenever Denver saw the option. It just wasn't really enough at that very last moment. Now, Denver is going for a really early Baneling nest, getting a lot of lings right now, and clearly I think this is not for defending against what SortOf could be doing. There's that certain time where the Baneling is just a little too quick. There's no spine crawler. It's obviously that the Zerg players not mean to be defensive, but rather get a lot of action in here. Now, Denver already has a couple of Banelings morphing underneath his own Overlord, so this kind of confirms that, you know, SortOf's Overlord doesn't see anything. Also, Denver uses Artosis and Tasteless. So one slow ling sees speedlings rocking out of this natural base, and this one sees the lack of drones and SortOf knows he's going to be in a difficult situation. But SortOf's Baneling Nest was perfectly timed to be defensive against this specific push, and his queens provide this kind of wall that's really cool. Even a nicely placed evolution chamber. At the target fire of the Baneling still, though. Yeah, that trade was better for Denver. 2 for 3. 2 Banelings still alive for him. Queens starting to get slaughtered here. One survives, but just barely, and one more Baneling left over. SortOf does have a substantial drone lead. This is something that Denver is going to have to start hitting right now if he hopes to make this attack worth it. 2 drones go down, not too big, and SortOf has Banelings now to make sure follow-up attacks don't do anything, but his Overlord, I think, is seeing there's no follow-up attacks. So far, Denver has just continued droning. Now, because he continued droning throughout that aggression, he did manage to bump it to at least an even drone count. SortOf had to make lings to respond and, you know, in a way, kind of overmade lings. So now it's his turn, the ebb and flow of ZvZ, to counter and see what he can do. Probably not a lot, except also get Denver to stop making drones. And this is that really tight, you know, who is actually better at ZvZ? Because Ling Baneling Wars, ooh. That was a nice Baneling hit from Denver. Ling Baneling Wars aren't just literally about watching the explosions and who has Lings and who doesn't. That's the easiest way to tell who has the better micro and who's going to win. It's also about, well, even if they do take a bad hit with a Baneling, did they already drone enough and do they have that clutch last second defense? Because then they still might be in the lead despite losing 20 Lings to a Baneling. That's where the real mastery, I think, of ZvZ early game comes in. And that's why it's an extra layer depth to what is cool about ZvZ. Personally, this is my favorite part of ZvZ. When it gets to roaches, that dynamic still exists, as Zerg always will have to consider, do I drone or do I make army? But I think it's especially cooler in the early stages. I have Evolution Chamber, but for Denver, SortOf with the Roach Warren. Third bases for both, and since they both know they have lane Baneling access, probably won't be any cancels or kills here. And that hatchery does not, in fact, go down. So things have a little bit calmed down here. Both players going for 1-1. Looks like Denver was just prioritizing the Evolution Chamber and then the Roach Warren. Layer's a bit faster for SortOf. Denver has a bit more in the drones. It's going to be a bit more in the drones, too. But I see people talking about, you know, lack of Rifkin and all that. So yeah, he is sleeping. He cast earlier today, not just actually a couple hours ago, right? When I run the stream, I don't have access to certain things, such as Twitch alerts, which is, you know, arguably the most important thing about a stream. So I don't have the most recent donator or follower or anything like that, because once upon a time, I was able to split up Twitch alerts by having one version and then an older version on 2 different browsers. That has since stopped working. So if I were to put that up, it just show mine on my personal channels, which feels bad. But anyways, that also includes the bit boss. For some reason, despite the bit boss being like seemingly an external, like, you know, browser connected app, whatever you want to call it, extension, I don't know, and me putting on a Firefox instead of Chrome, doesn't want to work. That's the one I really can't explain. The Twitch alerts thing, like, you actually download the program, but the bit boss thing, like, I don't understand that one. So anyways, that's what's covering today, and the perhaps missing features of what you usually see when Rifkin is streaming. Now, this game has really met its lull ZvZ, I suppose. It's past the Ling Baneling stage, and now it's on to the roaches. SortOf does have a large Roach force with +1 attacking in here and Roach speed, but Denver defender's advantage, his +1 just kicks in. He's waiting for Roach speed. I want to say should have enough. It's a little bit testy because he did get a lot more drones earlier on, so he had to like panic and make Roaches. But defender's advantage should be just enough for him to be fine. And as you see here, he's gonna panic a little. He's actually gonna pull the drones. But he has more Roaches on the way and is even managing to get way far ahead on the army supply compared to SortOf. SortOf was down at like sub 50 drones when he started that attack. So check the income graph. Yeah, Denver had a much bigger spike. He used that to build a 4th base, and he's also used that to get, I think, faster reinforcements. Perhaps he was also upset about Larva, but I think it was more the money. Now, an infestation pit is on the way for SortOf, but he might not get the time to utilize it. Denver is countering. He has his Roach speed, he has his upgrade, they're pretty much even on the +2, and he just saw that SortOf had to run back home with his tail between his legs, and is looking for an opportunity. Building Ravagers as he comes along, spiky balloon Ravagers, SortOf with a nice concave on the high ground, even though he's down in army supply. It's a little difficult to tell that in the actual game. Tunneling claws are on the way. Denver was researching Burrow that entire fight, which also could have taken away maybe a little too much from his defense, but clearly wasn't the case. And now he's going to have that tech versus SortOf's decision to go for Infestor tech. Both have strengths, both have weaknesses. It's really about how they're each going to use it. Denver also adds on a Hydralisk Den, which I think the jury's still kind of out. Like that should theoretically, I guess, with the high DPS of the Hydras being protected by the thick layer of Roaches, be a better composition, but it is again how you use it. Well, we might not see any one of those appear. The Infestors are just popping out now, and they don't have patching glands, but Denver wanted to choose to take a fight. Seems SortOf's concave is just too good. Denver has to back off. He also, I guess, talking about different units, also mentioning Ravagers here. Denver was quick to get them when he attacked and has a good number. Well, Tunneling Claws, seen by SortOf. Sometimes too many Ravagers is a bad thing, and Mass Roach still is able to overpower that. But we don't really see Mass Ravager anymore. That was a ZvZ test period. Pretty good fungal. Those Infestors finally got enough energy, and they were burrowed and hidden. And so Corrosive Biles did come down. That's where maybe Ravagers are preferable. It's when you know you're going to get a really good fungal, and a Corrosive Bile meets with that. All Zerg bracket, isn't there a Protoss in this one? Anyways. It's Europe, what to expect. Infestation Pit now on the way for Denver, who, did have that bigger spike of income and can afford these things, and even still has 7 more drones and that faster 4th base. So he can afford a lot of these things. So the Tunneling Claws, the Hydralisk Den, and getting into an Infestation Pit, all while having a decent remix, decent army supply. But he did fall behind in the +1 Carapace, sort of already on his way to +2. And this game is still, in a lot of ways, very even. Denver has a bigger bank for a Remax in case he takes a bad fight. SortOf has the potential to take a very good fight with that extra upgrade and the ability to cast Fungals, which now he has quite a few and is building more. Denver's starting to match that, and I do like that Denver's already on his way to Hive, where SortOf has kind of stalled out here. He's building Spine Crawlers on every single base to try and stop the Tunneling Claws from doing too much damage. At the very least, they'll prioritize the Spine Crawlers, and you can react before they've killed a dozen drones. I'd say SortOf has done a very, very good job dealing with Tunneling Claws, because one complication, that I think is overlooked. All right, you know it's on the way, you build Spine Crawlers, but you still need to split up your Roaches. Almost, but not quite equal to what they're doing. Getting distracted, pulling your entire army this way or that, splitting too much of the army one way. That's where perhaps Denver finds SortOf out of position without enough units and starts to finally bust up these ramps that have actually been the main problem here. If this is a different map, I think they've already kind of tussled more than twice, because that's basically what's happened so far. One that sort of initiated, one that Denver initiated. They would have probably already had a dozen fights, but Denver never really wanted to go up that ramp. SortOf tried to get a lot of roaches peeled off to do some damage, but Denver was on top of it, but he did pull his entire army away from it. No tunneling claws needed for SortOf to distract Denver like that, and now SortOf just allows himself to march up on that ramp, get that concave, prepare for a real battle. This timing is also going to work out beautifully. He's going to have +2 Carapace. He did not bring an Overseer. There it is now, and the units do pop up, but was that really a great move? We'll see how that affects the game. SortOf had a lot of roaches attacking other units, other structures, but he had a lot of his own fungals, and Denver is losing out on this battle. He's down an upgrade. Perhaps his Hydras weren't as effective as he was hoping for. And he's also just taking drone damage. SortOf managed to get the remaining roaches from over here to do some damage, or over here do some damage, and SortOf's roaches took out Denver's infestation pit. Denver finally got some of his tunneling claws to do some damage, but because of the spine crawlers, it was very limited, and in fact even, to what SortOf's able to do. I guess SortOf had the lesser drone count to begin with, so it looks a little bit more severe than it was. Denver also just busted out a couple more drones. So Denver did lose the fight. Whoopsie. You didn't see that. The war still continues. He didn't win the war. No one won the war. And things have, again, come to an even stopping point. Denver will continue harassing and is getting a little bit higher in that supply. Looks like SortOf has a huge gas bank, but didn't find the minerals. Whereas Denver seems much more evenly split. Also has a 5th base, and again, just so many more drones. The income graph has only ever once barely gone back into SortOf's favor at the very end there. Denver looking pretty good. He's a little bit later to an upgrade again, but this time only by like 10 seconds. They both have hive tech. They both have similar compositions. Hydra, Infestor, Roaches, Ravagers. SortOf has a couple more Infestors, I guess. Fewer on the Roaches. Denver is just... oh, he's making Hydras now. If Denver knew he was up 27 army supply, maybe he pushes. But he can't be sure about that. SortOf is probably thankful he's getting this time to max out again. If you can't remax instantly as Zerg player on 4 bases, I think you're already starting to sweat a little bit. But in this game, it ends up being okay. We have a Viper on the way. Certainly fungal growth, blind, and cloud combination. I was going to call it fungal cloud, which maybe I should call it fungal cloud. That's the combination name. Like Brangelina, whatever that was. But yeah, that combination can be really good. Obviously. You already have the corrosive biles being shot down with a fungal, but then the units don't even have to be targeted. They just actually won't do anything. Well, corrosive biles can hit other targets. Another roach force of Denver being denied, and Denver is starting to bank a lot. He's always... you look back at his bank after the fights, or just every so often, and he would usually have the bigger bank. Well, now it's substantial. So over here, doesn't have to worry about his gas, I suppose. He can remake Infestors if he's desperate. But he was much, much, much later to this 5th base. Not even done yet. Thank you to Shamalius for the 21-month resub. I believe we had a new sub at the beginning of the day. There's so many bits. So many bits. Action Shoot subbed. New sub. And Diceo and Mad Dog had a bit war. Thank you for the bits. +3 attack, finishing for both parties. Looks like SortOf was much faster, that +3 Carapace. So once again, having the armor upgrade did really help in that one battle on Denver's side, but not enough to steamroll. They both found themselves maxed out, both accruing a bank. Denver, at this point, with his bigger bank, you know, technically has that advantage, but considering how volatile these engagements are going to go with fungals, blinding clouds, corrosive biles, positioning, you name it, I'm not sure that bank is going to matter. It really depends how badly one or the other loses this fight. Fungos are going down, Vegetarians are going down, Corrosive Biles are going down everywhere, and SortOf is definitely losing this fight. The Concave was a bit better for Denver, and I'm thinking, yeah, there's a couple of roaches that were distracted. That also weren't a part of SortOf's army. He also attacked before his +3 Carapace was done, so it would have been anti-timing on SortOf's part, and Denver just pouncing on an army that wasn't prepared, I don't think, to take a fight. He went down that ramp and found himself in an awkward position, which Denver took full advantage of, had the faster remax, took the better fight, and now feels confident to go for the killing blow. He was up this, almost this much army supply a couple minutes ago, but took his sweet time. Got maxed out himself first, and then gave SortOf a while to get back into this game. SortOf unable to use that time to actually win the game. Despite getting maxed out himself with a bank, he took too bad of a fight. This Viper is going to try its best. It was, I guess, missing from the other fight. There was a lot of Corrosive Biles, and the Spine Crawler is even trying to help out here, but the Fungals aren't coming down. They're just shy of Fungals on that ramp. That could have been beautiful. That could have been at least a time stopper for SortOf, but didn't have it. And now Denver with a Concave should just be easily taking this game. GG. Denver with a 2-0 against SortOf. Perhaps unexpected. Denver has been doing better and better every time I've seen him, but SortOf, has been a staple Zerg for a long time. Went to create a train. I think he's actually perhaps planning on going back as well in December, something like that. But Denver, guess staying on the EU server. We get better at ZvZ. The next map is going to be Mech Depot. By the way, SortOf was in Korea like April, May. So that was a long time ago. But yeah, the next map will be Mech Depot. But first, a quick 2-minute break. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sing Season 4. That's the wrong overlay. Thanks for watching that break. This could be the last game of this series. As in the top right, oh, they swapped colors. Darn it. The top right is up 2-0. It is Denver. In the bottom left, as the red Zerg, he is SortOf. And he is once again trying out an early pull, but this time with gas. The first game, he did an okay amount of damage, but really not enough, I think, for what he was hoping for. Tried to follow up with an all-in that almost shocked and surprised Denver, but a nice scout halted that. Everything kind of went a little too poorly for SortOf, and while he did an almost amazing job bringing it back and defending in his own rights, it wasn't enough. This time, with a more committed attack, although it's not going to be Banelings, it's going to be just speed, maybe he'll find that's just good enough attack that snowballs into a victory. Now, Denver did, I think, go for this time the greedier version. I actually didn't pay attention, shoot. He actually held off on gas a little bit in that first game, so the speedlings may have been out just a little bit sooner, which really does drastically affect being able to save the hatchery or not. This one I didn't quite catch it, but his pool and hatchery finished around the same time, and he'll certainly have enough gas to immediately start speed. But if you saw this on, coming and it's impossible to see, the overlords just don't get here in time, and you might even try and, for instance, go for a Baneling nest first, since if they went for Banelings, you'd be SOL, even with the speed on the way. Obviously, they'd still be slow. So this isn't the Baneling version. SortOf is getting an expansion, something that Denver will be able to see this Overlord eventually. The initial moment of panic, the initial attack, could still do a lot of damage. But SortOf is really buying his time, waiting for that speed to finish, waiting for more lings. This is giving time for Denver's Overlord. Oh no, it pulls back! Oh my god. So he doesn't even have to see the hatchery necessarily. All he has to see is that there's a lack of creep spread. And then he'll be like, oh, what the hell, I know what's happening. But he doesn't even see that. This is a big surprise for him. Luckily, Denver was getting a few lings. He was not just caught in the middle of droning. So this is maybe going to be okay. He already loses 5 drones, is going to lose a queen. The other one had been pulled already from the main base, though, and is going to try and block this ramp. Spinecrawler was unfortunately just put down too late. Despite his knowledge, I guess maybe this Overlord finally saw it. Well, this one sees everything else now. But everything was a little bit too late. SortOf keeping his lings as long of a surprise as possible. against someone who did a normal Zerg opener seems to have been effective enough. And Denver, with the speed already done, finally done as well, just doesn't have enough lings. He's gonna try and fit in a Baneling nest, but oh, whoa, that was actually a nice surround. The bottom low ground hatchery bringing out a surround capability is pretty nice. 2 more drones go down, but Denver still has the drone lead. SortOf is starting to drone himself, however, and will be gaining that lead shortly. Just gonna buy time with whatever lings how he has left. I think he did see the Baneling nest as well. That was impossible to tell those lings were lings. No, he did not see the Baneling nest. SortOf has to back off. These 2 lings, if he did just sort of had a Baneling nest, would be turning into Banelings right now, but they're just gonna stay at home and wait. It's a pretty precarious. Denver has that army supply lead, but there's advantage kicking in. He has to wait for the Banelings. SortOf is in that really tight spot where he did manage to get a lead, but only if he manages to hold to keep that lead. And Denver looking for the big kills, the big Baneling shots, also is droning at home. Baneling ends up taking out a good portion of the lings, plus the queen. Another good portion of lings taking out 1 more Baneling, and that is it. SortOf cannot defend without his own Banelings. And Denver takes a 3-0 win to this series. Damn. So that's going to be the end of that series. A much more abrupt ending than I was expecting. Certainly SortOf a good Zerg player I thought would be able to take 1 or 2 games, but Denver just mighty good at ZvZ. Wrote all the things correctly, responded correctly, countered correctly. And that'll be that for this one. And the next series is going to be, hold on here, Xanster versus Goblin. Yeah, Goblin is a Protoss, for those of you who don't know him. Xanster is on the up and up. I give him a lot of credit here. I give him the victory, maybe even 3-1. But we're going to have to get the vetoes done for that. And well, it's a little bit awkward because that was such a fast game number 3. And we're going to go into a longer break where you get to learn a little bit more about TING. This is TING Season 4. We've already had 3 seasons. Many of you have been around since the very beginning, which is much appreciated. But if you still, if you don't know what's going on, you still can't grasp the concept, TING is a U.S. mobile phone service company, only for the United States. Unfortunately, for the Canadians out there, Europeans don't need us anyways. But the idea is you pay for what you need. So if you're not around, or if you are around Wi-Fi a lot and you don't need a lot of data, then TING, you can get as low as like 15-20 bucks on a TING bill. I use it. Great customer service, great people to work with. But of course, I'll let them talk a little bit more about themselves with this upcoming commercial break. So get the videos done, get the lobbies ready, and I'll see you guys soon.